Yes, so good evening, everyone. Today we have Miss Shweta Shivakumar with us. So, students, briefly, I will introduce you all with her, then we'll proceed with the session. So, Miss Shweta Shivakumar is a seasonal cybersecurity professional having 7+ years of experience in dealing with most of the demanding cybersecurity issues for companies across the globe. Her day-to-day work revolves around analyzing and understanding latest trends in cyber threats, attacks, and helping organizations overcome and address cyber risk. Her expertise is primarily focused on designing cybersecurity strategies for companies, conducting information risk assessment exercises, and addressing cyber compliance requirements for large scale and global organizations. In addition, she is also a certified information security auditor, anchoring the organization's efforts towards information security audits. So thank you, Ms. Shweta Shivakumar, for accepting our invitation. Now I'm handing over to you. You will start the session.
Hi, everyone. I hope my audio is clear.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm going to switch my video on just so at least, we get one-sided FaceTime here. I would have been happy to meet all of you in person, but thanks to COVID and the number of consecutive waves that are coming through, this had to be an online web Zoom session. So how are you all doing this weekend? And I hope this is not a monologue and there's some kind of a dialogue. At least we beat the blues in terms of conversing with each other and not being able to meet in person. I hope some of you can speak up, exchange your ideas. I'll be open to it. And I'm a learner too, and I can learn from you and you can learn from me, and that would be great. So yeah, how is your weekend going? I know it's a bad question to ask because most of us are on a Saturday evening. We are in a place we would typically not want to be. Same is the case with me. But when I got the invitation from Jatinder and team, I wanted to, be part of this session and try and help you all understand what my day-to-day job looks like in the field of information and cybersecurity, so that you guys can plan your thought processes, your learnings, and some value addition to your day-to-day learnings. So that's what the session is going to be about. I'm going to touch upon basics of cybersecurity. I'm going to touch upon the language that corporates use and organizations use to exchange and talk when attacks happen, to analyze strategies, bring roadmaps for organizations to, become more cyber aware. And finally, I'm also going to tell you what the industry looks like now and what the industry might look like 4 years down the line when you guys graduate and are all set and ready for this. So are we all good to go? Maybe I have a small presentation for you, although I'd want it to be a dialogue than a monologue. Maybe we can, look at those points and continue our discussion in the same flow or sequence, just so everybody is on the same level and on the same page. Does that sound good? Oh, wow, no answers. I think silence is the answer for this group.
Yes, ma'am.
Students, please unmute or put your answers in the chat window.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So before I put my screen on, I would like to give you a small introduction. Thank you, Jatinder. That was a very generous introduction by you. But from a professional side, I currently work for JP Morgan into their cyber team, and I previously worked with Ernst & Young. So my total experience is around 7+ years in the field of information and cyber security. So I typically deal with organizations who want to come up with strategies to suppress attacks, to make sure attacks are averted, to become more resilient when attacks happen to them, and also look into their processes, people, and culture to make sure the whole organization becomes cyber aware and cyber focused, right? So that's what I do for my day-to-day earning. So I'm just going to project my screen and get diving right away into the topic. Let me know when you can see I have. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So I have consciously named this topic being security minded, cybersecurity from an industry perspective, because I know there's just gazillions of information available on the internet that's going to tell you about what cyber is, what security is, how the two got married to each other, and how cybersecurity evolved and things like that, right? But what you guys would probably not read on the internet, or what you would probably not know at this point in time, is how professionals like us in the industry or in the organizations talk the language of cyber. So we just don't say attacks happen, breaches happen, data breaches happen. How do we counter them and things like that? We have a method to this whole madness of cybersecurity. There are some steps that we use, and there are some language. There are some parlance that we use in our everyday job that get us to being very coherent in the field and the world of cybersecurity. So yeah, so I picked my agenda like this for you guys in the next 50 minutes. I would want to talk about why global significance of cybersecurity, what is so good or not so good about cybersecurity globally that we are actually talking about cybersecurity on this podium today. And that is going to be extremely important because I know you guys have chosen a course for 4 years about AI, ML, and cybersecurity, and I'm sure you guys will be able to contribute much more than my slides on this particular agenda point. Next, we would probably dive into fundamentals in cybersecurity, which is around confidentiality, integrity, availability. And then we talk about the risk, the threats, the vulnerabilities, the impacts. And then I would also want to touch upon how these threats happen and the attacks happen, and what are the various types of cybersecurity and how it is actually directly relevant to your computer science course or the architecture or software architecture or network architecture that you will be studying, learning, analyzing in each of your semesters. And because I'm a computer science student myself, who was deeply involved in coding, and then I switched lines into cybersecurity. And I know how this all sums up, right? Each of these is connected in a very large extent. So I'm going to help share that insight with you, just so you carry that thought every semester. You understand computers, their architecture, and you're able to tie those back into the concepts of cybersecurity. And then obviously I'd want to run a small case study about what we do in our organization while consulting clients for their exercises around cyber. And then the most interesting bit, all of you guys have joined engineering because you want a job, and you have chosen AI, ML, cybersecurity because you want to get into that field. So I'm going to talk about, from my experience, what are the job roles I have seen and what could be very interesting over now and over a period of 5 years. And then we'll take questions and we'll wrap up. Okay. Assuming no questions so far because it's completely silent, I'm just going to move on. Right. So what's so hard about cybersecurity? I mean, if I can see there are so many people, so many of you students have joined this call. Can someone help me understand why you chose this course? Why did you like it? Why do you actually want to learn cybersecurity? Because I'm someone who learned cybersecurity in my post graduation, and you guys are so advanced. You're right out of college and you're learning cybersecurity as an engineering stream, which is great because the industry just wants you guys, right? So what is it that is so hard about cybersecurity? I probably want to hear one or two answers, and then I'll take my slides forward. No one? Everyone just joined like that?
I just got
Your audio is not clear.
there was a network lag, so can you?
Yeah, I can see some answers coming up, but I don't hear whoever is trying to speak. To control crime. Okay, wow. What crime? Wow, to protect the nation's cyberspace. That's very political. Great. That is wanted by today's industry. Perfect. Very diplomatic answer. Whoever that is, great. Okay. Bank fraud. Wow. Okay, you guys are going to drill me in, I guess, in the next few slides. But yeah, no, repeat the question. Why did you choose cybersecurity as your field of study? Coming future, warfare. Wow. Okay. My privacy. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Very abreast of what's happening. Great. Okay. Great. I've seen a couple of answers, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys probably why we are talking about it right now. Because guys, at the end of the day, it's all about money, right? Cybersecurity means there's money involved in both the ends. The guy who's impacting your cyber posture, and for the company or the organization who's trying to protect from an attack. And I think one caveat I would like to throw, most of my stats here belong to are from Gartner. So you can go back and check it back with Gartner research. So Gartner says that every day there are around $16 billion involved in a cyber attack with most organizations and individuals. And that's drilling down into 684 million an hour, and you slice and dice it and you will get 11 million per minute. That's a lot of money on the table. And whether you're losing it or you're gaining it, it's worth the discussion, right? It's worth the run for money. So that is the base. Organizations are trying to protect themselves from their losses, and these hackers and bad guys out there who are trying to manipulate something with your systems and data, they're going to gain as much as the organization loses, or even more than that. Who knows, right? So ultimately, it's a lot of money, and money is important in today's world, and that's why we're talking about cyber attacks. And it's like a ticking bomb, right? You're talking about day, minute, per hour, per minute, and as we are speaking, somebody's actually getting hacked. Somebody's data is actually getting stolen. When I mean data, personal data, it could be organizational data, it could be intellectual property of an organization's methods or patterns towards discovering something. Who knows, right? We don't know, but something is happening somewhere, and that somewhere is called the dark web. Something is happening in the dark web. There are multiple movies that have also been taken on this, and we don't even have to get into that. There's so much information to share out there. So we'll talk about, I'm not sure how many of y'all read about recent attacks, how many of y'all keep yourself updated about what's happening around the world, because you being cyber students, at least when you read the news, you will be aware that attacks are happening around the globe somewhere, but there are some attacks which come to the fore, right? And you want to know more about them, because a common man like you and me are being impacted by the attack. And I'm just going to put up a poster and see if someone is able to post their answer on the chat, or are able to give me shout out an answer for this as to what attack it is. I'm just going to post this picture. It is very recent, gained a lot of attention in the US. That's the clue. And somebody had written national threat. This was a national threat. Any answers?
Ma'am, are you talking about Iran petrol station?
No, it was in the US, so not Iran.
Ma'am, or the US pipeline attack.
That's amazing.
Ma'am,
that was
it was a
bang on.
ransomware attack. Actually,
Amazing, Ashif. I think that was great, because this attack is called the Colonial Pipeline
There are a
attack.
hell lot of attacks going on right now. Recently, there
Yeah.
was Russia's also. There was a whole power grid takedown, and US there was some data breaches going on. So there were a lot of attacks. So can't decide properly which one.
No, I think the only attack that impacted their pipeline and gasoline was the Colonial Pipeline attack. There was no other attack that impacted their gasoline pipes. So that was the clue there. If you can see the image that says diesel and gas, right? So that was an attack that impacted a common man, because they were literally queuing up to make sure they were not running out of gas supply. And the impacts were quite far reaching, because the pipeline had impacts to supplying fuel even for the aircraft. So even the aircraft the schedule of the aircraft kind of came to a standstill. So this was one significant attack that had a congressional hearing in the US, which is quite rare, because attacks usually happen they are they are written about and then they're forgotten later. But the president, the Honorable President Joe Biden, he actually took a congressional hearing about why this is a threat and why this needs to be addressed. Right, so it had a great impact on their national security. So that was the attack, and I think we got it right. And then it affected the common man. I told you the air traffic, the cargo, the entire supply chain. And interesting because the Colonial Pipeline had to pay a ransom. Somebody, Ashif pointed out, right? It was a ransomware attack. They had to pay 75 BTC Bitcoins to recover from the attack. Usually attacks happen in Bitcoins when it's a ransomware because you are untraceable in the Bitcoin world, in the crypto world. If you have a bank account and you're asking them to transfer, say, £1 million to you, then you are traceable. But in the Bitcoin world, nobody's going to find out who you are. So this was a typical case when 75 Bitcoins were transferred into the ransomware attack, to the ransomware attackers. And because of the congressional hearings and the heat that came up in this particular discussion in the US Congress, they were able to recover 40 Bitcoins they actually gave away, which is almost, I think, $40 million, if I am right. So this was the significant impact for this attack. Maybe I'll take you to another one and let's see. This is very easy because you can see the name of the company there, but this also had far-reaching consequences even in my own organization and in my own job. So this is the SolarWinds attack. Have you guys heard about it?
Ma'am, actually, in this attack, ma'am, it was first forced. Actually, someone has uploaded a malicious code on the software. So then it actually spread it through the update. Ma'am, all those clients of the SolarWinds attack, ma'am, those who were the clients has received an update and they have eventually auto-updated their systems. But that update was a malicious update. For that reason, actually, a far and huge impact has been created.
Okay, Ashif, I think you took my script away. Did you hack into my computer and see what I was actually doing?
No, no.
Then how do you know my script? You seem to be giving me all the...
Ackerman.
No, actually, I also tried to take some updates.
That's great. You give this in an interview and I think they'll be bowled out. Anyway, so that was on a lighter note. I think Ashif was just bang on, and that was the attack. I think the key here was one thing you probably could have added upon is this is a third-party organization for companies that were getting attacked, right? So these guys are a software provider, and their softwares are being used across banks, across retail companies, across multiple sectors, including US government.
Even cybersecurity, ma'am. Most of them, like there are some products from SolarWinds that are using cybersecurity.
Yeah, they are a company that sells network analysis, traffic analysis kind of tools. So yeah, you can't be surprised if cyber companies are also in the radar, right? So the impact was huge. Even companies like Microsoft had to put out a note saying they were impacted. So when this attack happened in, I think last year, we got a note in our corporate email saying, this was attacked and we're still analyzing the information about what information could have been leaked to the attackers and things like that. So we, being the cyber controls and technology team, we had to gear up the next. Obviously, we kind of knew about it when the management received a red flag on this. So we had a team built up and who was working to find out if there were any assets within the bank that were actually given away as part of the attack, and we were compromised or we were not compromised. I'm not going to give you the resultant of that exercise because then I will be giving out IP of the bank, which I'm not going to, but that's what typically happens, right? You are in a very realistic world when you are talking about cyber. Something happening somewhere in the world could actually wake you up when you're working for organizations which are global or even local for that matter. And you need to be up on your feet. You can't tell them, hey, I don't know what is a SolarWinds attack. I want to read about it. There's no time for all that. And you need to immediately map out so many details into your current organization's process, technology, people. Obviously, there's going to be a big team, but you need to do your part, right? And this is what is expected out of a cybersecurity professional or an information security professional, to be able to connect the dots and say, hey, this could be something that impacted my team or my organization. Are we overlooking it or are we not? So when these thought processes come through in an organization, I think the knowledge that you're gaining through a theoretical procedure over the last 4 years, over the next 4 years, sorry, will immensely help. And I guess most of you are already keeping yourself updated. So I think this is going to be a great journey for you when you set up for your interviews and you want to take a career itself. So yes, so this was all about the attacks that I wanted to speak. Right. So we spoke so much about them, right? Do you know what's common between these two attacks?
And the human, actually,
Exams.
and the social engineering and the mistake of the clients of those organizations, ma'am, those who have been tricked or somehow act as a foothold for the attackers to intrude their systems.
I agree to some extent, but I was looking more at what was their attack vector in terms of compromising their systems.
Malware.
Right? Yes, malware, but what got them to upload their malware on the server? They have to get
Remote
it
code
into system.
execution or something like those vulnerabilities.
And some vulnerability that will exist or some zero-day exploits that they have discovered and they have not disclosed it.
Okay, you guys are super educated in cyber, and I know that, but when I think at the level of organization, we'll still talk about basics. And the basic is they access those servers with compromised password. How they got the compromised password, I think the investigation is still on. You're right, there was malware, there was malicious code, got injected, all of that is great. But to even do that, they need to have passwords, right? So how did they get the password is the question that's still looming large for both of these organizations in the US. So that is the level of detail we get down to. We may talk about 0-day, malicious code, Trojan horse, remote access Trojan,
Social
all of
engineering.
these. Yep, could be, we don't know, they're still investigating. That could be one reason. But what I'm trying to indicate through my slide is we don't always have to think high level, right? Obviously, we know that the attack has happened and there are high level vectors and factors that are playing through. But awareness about small things in the organizations could actually go a long way in you contributing more towards that particular subject. So this is what was super common between these two attacks. Great. So slightly theoretical, but sorry, I have to give this out because this is kind of the base on why we are talking about cyber attacks and their impacts. So it could be operational, the business could come to a standstill like a Colonial Pipeline attack. SolarWinds didn't come to a standstill, okay? I mean, they were still running their businesses even after they knew they were hacked. But CP had to put a halt on their businesses because their whole supply chain was attacked and they did not want to disrupt it further. So each of these attacks could be different and their impacts could be different. SolarWinds continued to run their organization because there was only one software, which was the Orion software, which got compromised. The rest of the softwares were all fine. So impacts completely depend on your attack surface and the outcome of the attack. Obviously, it is financial, right? I mean, why are we even talking about it if it's not financially significant or harmful? Brand gets reputed completely. Example.
Data is wealth, ma'am. So most of the time,
Absolutely.
data is actually sold in the dark web. Most of these dark web vendors buy data for a lot of heavy money. For like Rocket.txt is like the most rated password which got leaked in database in dark web.
Agree.
So data
I
is
agree.
money over there.
But one more thing is even beyond data, that could also be political moves. Do you know that beyond the colonial, I think beyond the SolarWinds attack, they said that the Russian government is there who's actually plagued this down through SolarWinds, right? So it's not always money. Yes, mostly it is for players like you, me, and a lot of other hackers out there. But it could also be politically motivated, geopolitically motivated. There are so many aspects. And because it was geopolitically motivated, so many big organizations fell prey. They didn't want money. They wanted something else, right?
Ma'am, can I add a small point here?
Yeah.
Ma'am, and actually now, like recently, it is researched that the Pakistani hackers are targeting Indian and Afghan governments recently. So,
Yeah, that's a perfect example of being political and geopolitical, right? They're
There
probably
are
not after
actually
money.
like every 2 minutes there are more than 10 different in global attacks, like some attacks grow from India, some attack come from China, like that it will be there. It's continuous. Every 10 minutes or every 2 minutes actually attacks happen. Some companies even make sure that they do attacks on other companies for destroying their goodwill in public to
Yeah.
reduce their
Brand
finance.
reputation. Yeah. Brand reputation. Yes, that's supremely important. What happened to Dunkin' Donuts? I mean, I don't have a slide on that. Dunkin' Donuts kind of came to a halting crash in 2019 when their personal data breach happened. And 2016, when I went to the United States, I could find Dunkin' Donuts almost at every metro station. And then later, I think after the attack happened, Dunkin' Donuts was given an order to remove most of their branches because they were not equipped to handle data on their end systems, right? So that's the impact, that's the brand, that's the reputation failure. Of course, customer retention, I don't have to even talk about it. Yeah, I'm not going to sign up for a company like Dunkin' Donuts or their rewards program.
People file lawsuits on them if there any of the personal data of that range, like credit card details, get leaked in the dark web. They file lawsuits. Some people though, they go to the extent of filing lawsuits on many other companies if anything of this happens.
Yeah, privacy. US has a huge privacy bill. India doesn't even have one yet, but we are getting there. EU privacy bill. Yeah, if your personal data is even being handled or mishandled by an organization incorrectly, you have the right as a citizen to go file a lawsuit. So that's what it is. Then business partner relationship, supplier relationship, basically with your vendors, all of that could get impacted. Legal engagements, you get into a legal toil because you have to answer to the law. And then regulatory scrutiny, multiple regulations around cyber coming up. Not in India, of course, we don't have a regulation for cyber yet, but in the West and even in East, like Australia, New Zealand, they all have scrutiny on cyber. Okay, we spoke so much, but what about an emotional impact, right? That outweighs most of the things. You are stressed because as an individual, you're stressed because you don't know what personal data went across. As an organization, you're stressed because you don't know how many such cases you're going to find out in your network and organization because you found out one. Too many to deal with. That kind of sums up the impacts. I think we were able to get through most with Ashif and Chiranjeevi. Okay, what's the uptick? Why we are talking about it? But I'm going to tell you, according to Gartner again, the trends are super promising because there's a prediction that this is going to be $1 trillion market by 2022. When I mean $1 trillion market, the positive $1 trillion, not on the dark web $1 trillion. When I mean positive, the companies are ready to spend so much to protect themselves and put a guard on themselves, right? So that's the positive. And you can see a steady increase between 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. And you can only imagine that when you guys pass out in the next 3-4 years, this is almost going to maybe increase by 50%, maybe not, but yeah, somewhere around 50%. CISOs are talking about cybersecurity more than ever after work from homes have happened. And to add to that, I think the Colonial Pipeline attack was actually triggered by a work from home access. So what I'm trying to say is all of these COVID-19 situations are only adding more fuel to the fire, and we are only the growth for the whole industry is looking great in terms of spending. Why do you bother about spending? Because of jobs, right? You get great jobs with great packages, and you'll be able to contribute in very meaningful ways to organization. We'll look at that slide almost towards the end because that's quite interesting, and I'll be able to share a few insights about what each role has, what place each role has in the organization to do in the field of cybersecurity. Okay, cyber plus security. Slight basics, so don't get bored. Your computer science students, I know you can crack this diagram into bits and pieces and throw this on my face. So I'm not getting into cracking this diagram. All I'm trying to say is slightly getting into the parlance of how we start looking at security from an IT and cyber perspective. So we're talking about today's cyber only because we are in a decentralized and a distributed computing environment, right? In the 80s, if you're all aware of mainframe, probably most of you guys weren't even born by then. We were talking about mainframes. Mainframe is an age-old technology where there is no decentralization or peer-to-peer networking happening. All of the communication goes to only one server. That one server is responsible for everything, and then they connect to terminals, which are called thin threads. And there was no question of security because all you had to do is just protect one big asset. That's all. But things evolved. Internet came into picture. Things started becoming more open, and then there was peer-to-peer, client to server, server to client, layered architecture. Too many things that happened in computing. And then now there's cloud, and we're already talking about artificial intelligence in Internet of Things and things like that, right? So this is, say, let me say, for this is the basic diagrammatic representation of a small organization. And we have all your white hat, gray hat, black hat people, guys, waiting to pounce on you, right? So these guys are there, whether they're there for good reasons or bad, they're trying to get to your data. They're trying to get to your assets, right? So in our organizations, when we talk about such situations, they are coming for you. So there is no entry only because of one word. Or at least there's minimal entry because of controls. And that's the key to this whole door. We talk controls and controls and controls, and it's super exhausting. We talk about preventive controls, we talk about detective, we talk about corrective, recovery, and management and whatnot, right? But this will be your life. Like controls will be your life. You could map it to so many threats, you could map it to so many vulnerabilities, but ultimately you're trying to bring in a solution only if you have a control. So that's what I wanted to talk through a slide. We'll talk more in detail about controls a little later, but that's pictorially how I wanted to tell you guys. Okay, let's break it down. So assets, threats, vulnerability, impacts, and controls. I'm sure you'll have your syllabus breakdown of this. So I cannot emphasize more that this is still the language we talk in our companies. We still talk about what could threaten us, what are our threats, whether it's intentional, unintentional, human. We talk about whether vulnerabilities are existing in process, people, or technology. We are talking about what is impacting. Is my business going to go down for a few minutes or nanoseconds or seconds, or it's just it has no impact, or it's just that the impacts are being overplayed or downplayed. And then controls and risks. My life is just controls and risks at this moment. Every day I have a risk and controls playbook. All I deal with in my professional life is risk and controls. So that's how much you will get into it. But very interestingly, because you're going to do this for an organization and you are going to understand the entire landscape and then try and map controls and risks. Okay, super easy, right? All of you know CIA, right? Confidentiality, integrity, availability, 3 pillars of cybersecurity or information security. You've had this in your course or no?
Not till now, ma'am. It will be there.
Ma'am, we had
But
our
that's
exam, ma'am, I guess last 2 days ago. Ma'am, on
Okay, so you
information
had.
security.
Okay, so
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know the concept. Okay. But yeah, for the benefit of others, not for you, Ashik, maybe I can probably elaborate. I think confidentiality is something that you're trying, is a pillar where you're trying to say that between A and B, whatever information is being conversed, communicated is secret, right? You're trying to say that nobody should come to know about what we are talking to each other between A and B. That's confidential information. And you're protecting the information from anybody else getting access to it, hearing it, knowing about it. That's what confidentiality is about. So what's confidential information? Your Aadhaar number, your any personal data, credit card number, your passwords, usernames, etc. Right? That is confidential information and personal too. Integrity. Integrity is very specific and relevant to organizations because when you are, for example, the organization is storing your details along with the calculation for your payroll and salary. And if I have access as an IT guy to go and modify and alter your salary, then A's salary could become B's and B's salary could become C, and basically the person who's having access to this runs the show, right? So so the company says one thing and does another thing in terms of crediting salary by not being very truthful and truthful about the data that they have. So that's where integrity comes into picture. You try and protect the integrity of your data. That cannot be modified. That cannot be tampered. Availability, the name says it all. The data needs to be available for whenever it is required to be. If you have to be down for a minute, then you have to have a backup for something else to come in there. So these are the pillars. I mean, we still talk about this, and I am emphasizing again, do not forget the basics, because when you are doing controls, when you are talking, when you're getting into controls in your syllabus, you will map out what controls are for confidentiality, what controls are for integrity, and what controls are for availability. Like, for example, you see in WhatsApp, the header which says all your messages are end-to-end encrypted. What are they trying to achieve? Confidentiality. That's what they're saying. At least they're claiming. We don't know, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, true. So
Ma'am,
similarly,
when we
integrity.
upload it on the drive, ma'am, that time end-to-end encryption fails, ma'am, and WhatsApp, ma'am, says in small notation that if you upload in your drive, then there will be no end-to-end encryption, ma'am, because anyone can take the file from the drive and decrypt it and read the messages.
Correct. So I mean, they've declared
There's
it. So
always
there
a
is one.
catch. There's always a catch in these type of stuff.
Yeah, that is because, see, I think you're right. You cannot address the risk 100%, right? Even for WhatsApp as a company. Why would they address the risk 100%? It's not possible. They would only address risks for which they get revenue equivalent. That is what businesses are all about. And that's what you will come to realize when you join an organization. Everything is not foolproof. You're not going to plug controls for everything. So you'll get there. I've gotten there. You'll get there too. And when you actually dig down, it makes sense. Somewhere it does make sense, at least from an organization standpoint. So moving on to controls around integrity, you have controls to authenticate yourself, right? That's integrity. And availability, you have backup controls. You have controls to make sure that once you have a failure, you have another source to recover that data and put it on your website again for it to be up and running in a minute or two or whatever. So guys, don't forget these concepts are supremely important and will keep chasing you all the way up till you have a career in cybersec or infosec. Okay, I've just added a few more elements because this is the Macomber cube, which is slightly theoretical, but will add value when you dig down into it. So you can see the security goals of CIA or right on top, and then you have transmission, storage, and processing, which is nothing but how your data is lying inside your organization. And then you have the organization's eyesight into this whole circle called cybersecurity. So we'll start with people. So people are the weakest link in the chain, and it's not a joke, because most of the people don't even know that they cannot hit on certain links in their organization. They don't even know that certain downloads are not allowed. So the organization tries and targets people in terms of awareness on how to get them up to speed and telling them what is right and wrong in their usage of information within the organization's network and outside. Then you have policies, procedures, and all of that. Very theoretical. The organization sets up a team and they make sure that certain guidelines are published for the sake of the employees, the organization, as well as for the benefit of the brand of the organization, where they put in certain things like network security policy, physical security policy. They tell and detail all the steps on how you achieve security through certain steps. Like for physical security, step 1, you need to be aware that you need to submit a form, somebody has to approve, then you need to submit a photo, somebody verifies it, and then somebody gives you an access card through which you can swipe on the door with an access that is on a chip on the card. So all of these controls and steps come into play in these policies and procedures. Sorry. Then you have technology, interesting piece of controls. My interest area, like you talk about VPNs, IDS, firewalls, antivirus, anti-spyware, malware, etc. And how you need to, where they need to be used, how they need to be used across the organization. And then we speak about what is the data that we're trying to protect? What is the asset? What is the information? Is it in transit between two systems, between system A, system B? Or is it something that is stored in the memory of a particular system or a database? Or, sorry, or it's something that is in the stage of processing, right? So these are the various states that you will remember, and you will try and map out those controls accordingly. For example, storage data gains more importance in terms of controls around protecting the database, access to database, integrity of the database. Transmission will have something around protecting it from a man in the middle attack, like somebody who's an outsider should not gain information between communication of A to B and B to A. For example, network security controls. Processing will have more about what will happen if memory fails, or what will happen if somebody corrupts the memory while you're running a big code, or when your processor is currently performing its functions. So all of these tie back to people, process, and technology, and CIA. So if just to the benefit of time, I'll probably move on. Simple, I think we broke all of this down in the first 2-3 slides. And thanks to Ashish and Chiranjeevi, I mean, most of you, I think both of you kind of broke it down for me as well. So just for the benefit of others, asset is something, it's a digital asset. We're trying to protect data. That data could be personal data, customer data, or employee data, or it could be data of a trade secret of an organization. It could be something, a data that is intellectual property for the organization. Anything is data for them, right? We're talking, and for the benefit of cyber, we're only talking about digital data, nothing physical. Okay, most of these you guys know, except probably risks. I mean, you would not have read more about risk because it's a practical applicability in organizations to use the concepts of threat and vulnerabilities. So it'll probably be interesting to you, because as and when you progress through your semesters, you will learn the basics around risk management, information risk management. You'll come across frameworks that help alleviate risks through those models. So a brief glimpse into what risk is. Risk is nothing but a probability that the threat might actually exploit a vulnerability or weakness in your system, and what is the resultant impact if that is exploited. So you basically multiply the two, either quantitatively through numbers that an organization has come up with, or qualitatively through setting up something like high, medium, low, which also we will look at in the next few slides.
I think this, like, it goes in a path, like risk leads to vulnerability, vulnerability leads to threat leads to exploitations. Like, it goes in a path, right?
Right. No, that is right. But when organizations, right, like how, no matter how clear you are, if you're going into a company and they're asking you what is the risk of this server getting compromised, you wouldn't have a finite answer, right? You'll have to work around certain data points. You have to see where is the server used, what is the impact of the server is going to go down for a few seconds, what are the threat actors that are coming into play, because it's probably on the internet and not on the internet. So various factors come in. So giving an answer to risk, I have not been able to give an answer to risk without the data, without analyzing the data set that I have. So I'm sure you guys also would not be able to, and that is why this slightly small theoretical knowledge becomes key in understanding.
Depends on what type of software and what type of vulnerability it has, actually, like what kind of exploitation can be used.
No, but my point is organizations don't do it in a haphazardly. I told you, right, the phrase I used, there is a method to this madness of dealing with cyber. So they have a framework. So they refer to framework through organizations like NIST, which have come up with detailed procedures on how to deal with information risk. So we can't just go tell them, hey, this is the software, this is the code. So if it's being used 24/7, then the risk is super high. No, they want all of this documented, because the board, the CEO, the CISO, all of them are going to be aware of what's in the document and what is it that they want to protect. Ultimately, it's their money that's going into protecting these risks, right? If they want to spend $1 million protecting their online website, they may not want to spend another $1 million protecting their supply chain risk. So it depends upon where their assets are lying and how their business is running on day-to-day basis. This concept is theoretical, but when you move into the organization, it becomes extremely interesting to decipher how organizations perceive risk based on their business problems. Anyway, so I have a small scenario. We have, we have 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes. Let me see. So I'm going to open the floor for answers. I'll be happy if anybody except Ashif and Chiranjeevi answered, because at least I know someone is hearing me apart from them and answering to me. So there's this guy, Sam, right? So this is hypothetical. As much as it's hypothetical, I deal with these cases every day. Let's say he left the organization in October, but he's able to log in into his own network, e-business network, in November. And because during COVID time, they had given him an additional access of logging in from home, he's able to make use of the same passwords or credentials for logging in. So obviously by logging in, he's going to alter some data of eBiz, say sales data, because he's not very happy with the way eBiz compensated him at the time of him getting relieved. So who's the threat here? What's the threat?
Data manipulation, data getting stolen by the sensitive data getting stolen, or the company might actually update the database and remove people who are already resigned from the company, like those type of things.
Who's the threat here? I mean, great. These are the actions that you want to protect from, right? What is the threat? Who's the threat? What is the threat? I gave away the clue.
Threat is Abyss, like this guy who was left it and he was already come back and or is able to log into his portal.
The threat is very intentional, bang on, and it is this guy who's not very happy. So you cannot, just because some guy leaves your organization, you cannot just write them off saying, hey, he's gone. I don't care about him anymore. You care about him very much because he's a big source of threat. What's the vulnerability?
Data loss.
Very generic. Okay, anyway, the vulnerability is a weakness in the system, right? So it could be a process vulnerability because somebody has not dealt with removing the access of this guy once he left. Simple thing. That's the basic thing that you had to do. He had left the organization. Data loss is the final impact. Your data was lost. But what is the weakness? The weakness is something else. The weakness is a process that was ineffective and somebody had forgotten to terminate it on the system, not physically. Right?
And the IT support was not working properly.
Maybe that's a process problem, a bug problem, something didn't work, but those are your weaknesses. Impact, financial, reputation, impact can be anything, doesn't matter. But ultimately, like Chiranjeevi said, there is going to be a data loss, or it could be anything, data manipulation, could be anything. But it is important for you to understand and break it down as threat, vulnerability, and risk. Understand that threat is always something that you're trying to protect from and not an impact. Vulnerability is your weakness in your system. Risk is the resultant of a threat and a vulnerability marrying and acting with each other. Right? Next one, super simple again. There's this female Alice, she logs into her email box in the company, sees an email from Microsoft because she is dealing with Microsoft products, and she immediately clicks on a link and then something downloads and all the details are fed in the computers, in the organization's system or network because of the download of an upgraded software. So what is the threat here?
Wait.
Thread
Alice not being aware of not
of a thread, ma'am.
Of, sorry, I think Ruby, I didn't hear.
I'm actually not properly sure on what can I tell in threats, risk, or vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Like I'll tell what I
Thread,
understand.
I think,
That's fine.
ma'am.
She's getting social engineered.
Yes,
All
somewhere.
she's being the loophole on this whole system, like of getting the data from her system and getting an access to the organization.
I
And
agree. I think the threat is mostly an email, which is a phished email, and like you said, somebody has found their way into her email box. That is it. And vulnerability is simple. She is absolutely not aware of how to treat those emails, and hence she goes and clicks on it. If she's aware, she'll be looking out for red flags, right? That's the weakness. The impact could be anything: brand loss, reputational loss, operational loss, or anything. Okay. We've spoke so much about threat, vulnerabilities, impact. I'm going to rush into risks. Companies have a way of dealing with risks, like I told you earlier. They just don't say, hey, I have a risk, so I'm going to protect it. And this is going to be threat, risk, vulnerability, space, and all of that. They're going to try and find out what is more relevant to their business to avoid the risk. Mitigate is nothing but reduce the risk, transfer it completely, or accept risk. Okay. So one of these boxes will tick for their strategies, one or many, because depends on the asset, depends on the business and all of that. And one business might choose 4 strategies across different assets and different risks. So avoiding is nothing but you completely take the risk away and say, hey, I've addressed it. Mitigating is just trying to reduce it. Okay, you're addressing it, but you know that 100% is not going to go away. There's a firewall. However, there could be some misconfigurations within the firewall or access controls, and somebody could always try to get into you. Transfer is like you give it off to another party. Like there's a lot of hype about cyber insurance these days, right? I mean, companies are saying that if I impacted by an attack, then I will pass on the risk to a cyber. They will reimburse you for whatever amount, or even more or less, or for the amount that your business was impacted. So this is transfer. Obviously, the price is huge. You have to pay a huge premium for cyber insurance, but nevertheless, that market is thriving. You accept the risk. You know you can't do anything about it, right? Mostly, you can't control it. Like you are in an earthquake-prone area, like in Japan. There are companies, they know there is a risk. They cannot help it. Maximum they can do is probably take their data centers somewhere. That's all. Too much information here again around controls. There are preventive controls, there are detective ones, there are corrective ones. And you again break them down as their management, physical, operational, and technical. Mostly cyber revolves around this last technical portion. But if you want to be a holistic professional in information security, you cannot ignore administrative and operational as well. Mostly those look into policy procedures, those look into physical security, and they also look into how you can plan for recoveries, VCP, DR, planning, and things like that. Technical is super interesting because you're going to deal with tools, you're going to deal with control softwares. So that's how it breaks down. So many controls. Okay. It's totally running out of time. But I think we covered malware defenses in our previous case study. I think we were able to cover training and awareness program. There are multiple. All of these are taken from CIS. It's a benchmark control. So wherever you are, if you continue to choose your career in cyber, you will always come back and look at CIS baseline controls. So these are guiding lights for organizations to know how they can fix controls in their own organization. Talks about management, technical, administrative, everything. So when you have the time, please go around, look at these. Don't just keep looking at the threats and attacks. Understand about how controls can play a role. Because I'm sure when you talk about this as a story in front of your interviewer 3 years down the line, as a threat, threat, vulnerability, risk, and controls as a solution, they might want to hear more of your perspectives in the future. Types of attacks, we know most of them. Advanced persistent threat was one attack that came through SolarWinds. It kept sitting on their system for around 8+ months. Nobody knew. It persisted on their systems, and then after the 8th month, it goes bang, blew out. Right. So those are advanced persistent threats. Rest are pretty much self-explanatory and also available on the internet for more details. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention because these are the top 10. I think even OWASP is trying to cover these days in their OWASP guidelines. Okay, this is my favorite, but I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go into the computing stack uh, syllabus of your portion, where you break down the whole network as physical, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, application. But once you get there, you will understand that every layer has a potential to get impacted either as binary data, as packets, as data on the application. That's what I wanted to convey. So it's just not about what you see on the front end. It's just not the application. There are multiple layers going inside, right? So what you see on the application is just English, something data that you're able to read through. But when you break it down in transport layer, then there are bits, bytes, bits, packets with so much of details like the IP, which path, which router, which MAC address, and so many things. And when the attacker gets a hang of it, it's each piece of this, and it becomes super visible to them. So that's the relevance to the computing model. So when you read the computing model, always remember that that's a tie-out between cybersecurity and computing model of OSI. Okay, we have strategies, very professional. Companies come out with frameworks, companies come out with guidelines of how to address this. So probably take you a quick 5-minute insight into a small case study about a hospital. So which has say 50 clinics and labs in India, and they decide to do a risk assessment of how they are faring in their cyber risk posture because they've had so many audits. And they decide to use 853, which is exactly this for their risk assessment. So the assets related to people, process, and technology at Fabio were people are patients, doctors, all of their data is somewhere in the systems. Processes could be registering a customer or a patient, unregistering them, and then billing processes, health information storage, and then how reports are getting downloaded by users or patients, right? Subset of it. And then technology could be what applications they use, what tools they use, how is the billing happening, how is it happening in real time for them to access patient data, all of that. And so what they do is they try and understand their assets. For an organization, the asset is going to be health information. It's going to be where the devices, which devices are storing patient data. It's going to be a little more about how payments are being received. Is it going to be UPI, online, credit card, etc.? Where are those details stored? And say you're a hospital, so you don't have the core competency of handling IT. So is it being given to a vendor to handle? And then the organization kind of sits, regroups, and maps it to high, medium, low, etc. Once they do that, they understand that if my patient health information is lost, is damaged, then it is high. The impact is high. Similarly, they try and draw out each of those highs, mediums, and lows. High, medium, and low, the organization will define based on its presence, business, so many factors. It's at a very high level. Basically, the CIO or the CISO will sign off on that. And then they try and map these to risks. Who are my risks? Hackers, ransomware, denial of service, phishing, malware. And then they say, what is the probability that a ransomware attack can happen on my patient health information? Medium, not so high, low. They come up with this classification as medium, high, low. And then finally, they map out a prioritization. This is what I was talking about, the last column, the risk. High is high, intermediate is going to be a high. How they come up with it? They have their own matrix that they form. Say on the x-axis, they have a likelihood. Y-axis, they have an impact. They marry low and low, it becomes a low. They marry low and medium, it becomes a medium or a low. It depends. So all of these are strategies based on which organizations come up with assessing what they need to protect, how they need to protect, and what budget should go into protecting these assets. Okay, that was a whole lot of theory, but I'm sure you'll encounter this while doing case studies in your next 1 or 2 years. I did when I was doing my post-graduation, so sure you will do too. Okay, super interesting. Last slide. What are the various roles? You have engineers who are security engineers, cryptographers, hackers, PT, penetration testing, incident responders, analysts, vulnerability assessors. Very technical, super interesting, hands-on. You will be given tools by the organization to do all this. Super expensive tools organizations will give you, and they will tell you, hey, these are the important assets based on my risk assessment. Can you go and find out where I am, how vulnerable I am? So the lower base is mostly the entry level job, but you will have the knowledge that the senior management needs to have. That is so powerful. Mid-level, mostly you'll be looking at policies, procedures, you'll be auditing stuff because, and you will be designing an architecture that has security in mind for applications, databases, and things like that. Then you directly become a manager, you are a CISO and handling the entire information security posture for an organization. Two upcoming trends I wanted to let you know. Well, if you're interested in coding, learn coding in terms of security. Just don't learn coding because coding is not going to be helpful. It will be, but I'm saying that since you're in a cyber course, learn how to develop apps securely. That's what is important. Data privacy. Somebody pointed out privacy earlier, right? Data privacy is a huge blossoming field. So many legalities coming in from multiple countries, and yet organizations like even big banks and companies are finding it supremely hard to cope with those laws and mandates provided within those regulations. Ultimately, you're protecting personal data, so it does fall into the ambit of cyber. Read through EU data privacy laws, read through Indian PDPB that's going to be staged in the parliament very soon. And all companies are going to have to show compliance towards the law. Guys, that's it. I think I have overrun time by 10 minutes. I'm extremely sorry, but thanks to the super participation by y'all, and I think hats off. You guys knew so much, and I learned so many things from you guys. But if there are any questions, do let me know. And yes, do reach out to me. That's my email ID. And if you hit me up on email, I'll be able to respond on anything, on trends, on internships, on anything that you want to talk about. So that's about it for today, I think. If you guys have any questions, we can take. And otherwise, I'm all set here.
What
Wrap
type
up.
of job profiles are there for any cybersecurity profession, like a pen tester?
Pen tester. You are a serious pen tester within an organization and you fall into the office of a CISO. So when you are, for example, you said pen tester, there is also another parallel or similar profile, which is for incident responder, where you take care of real-time incidents. Like when an attack happens or when a breach happens or when an incident happens, you know how to respond. You keep monitoring them. That is available. That is where a SOC comes into picture, a SOC lab. All organizations have Security Operations Center. Please go Google it. They're setting this up big time, even in India. So you're looking at live traffic analysis data, trying to see if somebody is coming into your network. As a penetration tester, you will not have access to all of that. You will do a post-mortem analysis only, or you will do a pre-analysis, right? If you want to work on real-time live data, then SOC is for you if you're interested in that. There are also roles like audit and compliance, where so many laws are coming up. You want to put risks and controls in place, and you help organizations with that. That is a little high level because you get a overview into the organization standing at process, people, and technology level, and you don't restrict yourself to just one technology or technical security controls. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've seen from my experience.